there's a gap in how consumer data is collected, managed, used today. How can we improve it for enterprises and for the customers they're serving? And so our solution allows consumers to opt into data sharing and to have total transparency over what data they're sharing with us and actually gain compensation for that. Here's how we use it at Mineme. The first is, how can you predict what customers want based on what we already know? And then how can you actually action on that? We're using AI to segment audiences in a way that goes above and beyond what a manual worker is able to do. We're then able to help you create actual content, whether that's images, whether that's descriptions, whether that's product recommendations. And that way companies gain access to macro level data that helps them better understand what the customer wants.
You are listening to AI Insights San Francisco by Roan Weigert.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this new episode of AI Insights here in San Francisco. Today, I'm Archana. She's going to talk about a little bit about her company, her past experience, and brings insights about AI. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much for being here. Super excited.
Can you talk about what is Mineme?
Yeah. So hi, I'm Archana, founder and CEO of Mineme, and we're building a data marketplace where users and enterprises can win. And what we mean by that is we're leveraging ethically sourced, rich consumer data to empower companies to deliver the right experience to the right customer at the right time.
I want to go over a little bit about your background. You have worked into amazing companies.
Thank you.
You have studied in amazing places.
Appreciate
I think you can learn a lot from that. So can you go over your background?
I'll start at the very beginning. I grew up in Seattle, which many of you probably associate with Sleepless in Seattle or Microsoft and Amazon, which is basically the birthplace of so much technological innovation. And I think I grew up surrounded by that excitement and spirit of tech and seeing how people were really using it to solve some of the biggest problems. And so kind of with that in mind, I went to Harvard for college. I graduated in 2018, and I began my career at McKinsey as a consultant. I was helping consumer tech companies innovate into greenfield spaces. And I really began to see here that consumer data is the number one value driver for companies across the board. And I had such tremendous experience working there, but I wanted to get my hands a little dirtier. So I jumped to an early stage startup called Deliver. Was early stage at the time. I eventually led their new customer growth segment, which was all about designing and implementing products for enterprises. And it was here I got to work with C-level executives of top retailers across the country and really kind of see the gap that exists between the types of data companies have access to today and what they need to be successful and to better connect with their customers. And so I stayed with them all the way through their acquisition by Shopify in 2022, and then began to see if there is a room to improve the data marketplace, why shouldn't we build one where consumers are at the center of it? So that's how Mineme got started.
Amazing. So in Harvard, what you did for studies, and I know that you study also neuroscience as well. So how does all combine together to this company that you're doing right now?
Yeah. So at Harvard, I studied economics and neuroscience, or a branch of neuroscience called mind, brain, and behavior. And I've always kind of been fascinated with how people make decisions and how those decisions translate into macro outcomes, right? And how can people be smarter, well-equipped, better educated to make decisions that propel the whole world forward. And I think that where I have landed with this is that humans bring creativity and incredible problem-solving skills to the space, and technology, and especially AI, is the unlock to sort of 10x that level of processing, right? So that's kind of what brought me to wanting to work in tech and seeing how can we use technology as a tool to unlock human potential and human decision-making for the betterment of everyone.
So how you combine the McKinsey experience, the Deliver experience, and then what is the specific case that you have been seeing over and over again? Because those things keep bugging you, like
Right.
you as an entrepreneur,
Right.
those things keep bugging you. Like, okay, so I can, you see one case here, another case there, and then you kind of combine things together to build your product. So what are the things that you have been noticed to create this product?
Yeah. So I think McKinsey and Deliver were two very different jobs. McKinsey is so strategic. You're coming into some of the top companies in the world and helping them think about really amazing blue sky problems. And at Deliver, we were an early stage startup very trying to figure out who's our customer, how do we serve them best. But the thing that really connects those two experiences and why I think they both became such terrific companies is because they were customer obsessed from day one. At McKinsey, you are drinking from a fire hose at every moment because you are trying to learn not only who the company is, but who are they trying to serve and how can we serve them better? And at Deliver, we're doing the same thing. We're always asking, how can we be better? How can we make the lives of our customers easier? And I think that customer obsession is what every successful company has in common. But when you look at kind of what underlies that, it's an understanding of your customer, right? And that can come from talking to them, working with them for so long. But in today's day and age, sort of the gold mine is consumer data. What information do you have about them that's ethically sourced, right? That's, shared with consent and is the right kind of data, but how do you leverage that data to help create an experience that's going to absolutely delight your customer? And I think that is really what stuck with me and said, there's a gap in how consumer data is collected, managed, used today. How can we improve it such that it's an improvement for enterprises and for the customers they're serving?
You created a marketplace. You don't see this much in the market because you need to understand a 360 of everything, right? Not just the companies, the enterprises that are consuming the data, but also the companies that are getting the data or the final customer. Can I go over now a bit your solution?
Absolutely. So there's two parts of what we're building. The first is on the consumer side. We're trying to build a marketplace where users have transparency, control, and visibility over the data that they're sharing. And so our solution allows consumers to opt into data sharing and to have total transparency over what data they're sharing with us and actually gain compensation for that in the form of discount codes, rewards, and actual cash compensation. And through that, we're building a really targeted, clean understanding of a customer that can supplement enterprises' current understanding to allow them to build products, invest in the right spaces, and create experiences that will best connect with their customers. On the second side of it, on the enterprise side, it's A, leveraging the data set that we have, but B, also working with companies to say, you have an understanding of your customer, whether it's through loyalty programs, whether it's through repeated interactions. How can we help you understand that data and actually extract actionable insights such that you can deliver personalization at scale in a cost-effective way, in a way that delights your customer? And so that's the enterprise side of our product is delivering those dynamic, hyper-personalized experiences based on consumer data.
Right, because now we have the company has most power of the data are Google and Facebook, Meta and Facebook.
Yeah.
Meta and Google.
Yes.
So you're democratized data. So then the big powers don't own everything. So then a smaller company has opportunities to explore more this data, because if you go to Google Ads, it's their way to do things. Meta Ads, their way to do things, their way to handle data. And like you say, sometimes you don't even know how much legal is this data coming from. So then you open this opportunity for enterprise that has access to their own data, own content, right?
Mm-hmm. So I think how we're thinking about it is, for so long, how it used to be was companies like Meta and Google collected a tremendous amount of consumer data, with or without the user consent, right? But what that enabled Google and Meta to do is build these really powerful, deterministic ad distribution models. And so that helped brands connect with their customers through these sort of black box algorithms. But now you're seeing sort of a change in the tide, right? That was sort of the old status quo. But now what's changing is a couple things. First, consumers are demanding more ownership and visibility over their data. There have been enough leaks, enough scandals, enough issues with how exactly with how companies handle consumer data that it's time for a change, and people are beginning to demand that. And you can see it. Apple just implemented app tracking transparency, which means that mobile apps can no longer collect user information automatically. Google's announced the deprecation of cookies from Chrome, and all of this is in response to a turning tide in both consumer sentiment and also regulation. And what that means is those black box solutions that depended on sort of this aggregate consumer understanding no longer works. And so now's the time to rebuild that data marketplace. And so we should rebuild it as a way where consumers benefit just as much as the enterprises do.
So looks like now the customer has more power to decide what direction they want to do with their data. If they want to share, if they don't want to share it, or if they want to share, if they want to earn for that. So how do you think you can empower those customers? Because now we're talking about the customer side,
Yeah.
and not the enterprise side, now the customer side.
Yeah, thinking about consumers. So personally, I've always been a little bit more of a privacy person. And so when I kind of began to think and ideate about Mineme, I was thinking about building a solution that was more around the right to be forgotten. And what that means is the right to not share my data at all and be private and still be able to engage meaningfully on the internet without having all of my information shared. But in kind of talking to folks and sort of reflecting on the experience that I've gotten used to, sharing some of my personal data and sharing people's data when they're on the internet actually has tremendous value, not just to the enterprise, but to me as well.
Yeah.
I've very much gotten used to that personalized experience. I like getting advertisements for things that are relevant to me. I like being able to open up my streaming, TV shows and get a recommendation for what I might like next. I've gotten used to that level of personalization, and the piece that's missing for me is just being an active participant in that data sharing marketplace. So I want to be able to continue to experience those things, but I also want to sleep at night knowing that my address, my location, my health information is not being shared. And so the unlock there that Mineme is seeking to explore is how do we bring that transparency and that control back into the situation to make sure that consumers are getting the experiences that delight them, but in a way that makes them feel safe and comfortable.
Looking out to the daily user, how can they monetize this data?
Yeah. So consumer data has tremendous value to a lot of players. So when you're consenting to share your information and that information helps a company invest in the right product line or serve the right ads or create the right, product for you, that has value to it. And companies are already paying a tremendous amount of money for access to information like that. The difference is historically, like we talked about, a lot of that value is being held by players like Meta and Google. And there's been no challenges to that in the past. And now for the first time, they're being held accountable for how they acquire and transact that information. And so it's not that the value is changing of your information, it's how that value is being shared. There's already that value on the marketplace, but why shouldn't you benefit from the data that you're sharing that's helping these companies? And so it's that reframe that we're going for, is how do we bring the consumer to be an active part of the marketplace rather than, the source, but not discovering any of the value.
Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned that the way that the customer can, not just the platforms can get this data from customer, but also the customer itself. I think you mentioned on the conversation before here, they can install Google Chrome extension to capture this and start to monetize that, right?
Yes.
How does it work?
So that is how our product works today. We've opened it to a select number of beta users. We have hundreds on the wait list to get on board. But what we've built initially is a browser data collection tool that sits on your browser. And what it allows you to do is you can opt in and out of data sharing for specific use cases. For example, one of the use cases that we've built is around purchase data. So think about, what are your favorite brands? What kinds of things are you shopping for? What kinds of categories are you interested in? All of that information, which is not personally identifiable and not threatening, but still has tremendous value to companies. And so you can opt in and out of sharing that information. And then what we do is we automate data collection for you cross-site, cross-session, and we store and record that data, and then we aggregate and anonymize data across users into macro data sets that companies can license and extract key insights from.
That's very, very nice way to collect this data. Now, thinking about the enterprise side.
Yes.
So I have been working with Google Ads, Facebook Ads for many years, and it looks like the price just going up each year.
Correct.
And of course, the service improves and stuff is more targeted, but every year increases. And now, what is the value for the company, for the enterprises to get your service? What are they going to use that?
Correct. So I think there's a couple reasons. I think First, Google and Meta used to be black box solutions. And what that meant is you gave them the money and they decided, because they had these incredible models, who should get what ad and when they should get it. And hopefully that results in a conversion for you. Since some of these sort of macro changes, including sort of the iOS app tracking transparency changes, their models have changed from what we call deterministic, which means they actually see end to end what a consumer does and improve their models based on it, to what we call probabilistic, right? So they are trying to predict what they think someone will do, but that is an incredibly hard problem to solve relative to when you know what they're going to do. And so what that means is the price of advertising has gone up for these retailers, but not necessarily the return on ad spend. So the idea is when you're spending a tremendous amount of money on marketing and understanding your customer, how can you reclaim ownership of that relationship? And there's two ways to do it. One is to make sure that the data that you already have about customers and what they're doing on your site, that you are taking full advantage of that information and that you're actually taking it, creating audience segmentations, able to generate content, not only, marketing outreach, but actually on-site like PDPs. Yeah, exactly. Like delivering real-time personalized experiences based on the data you already have. And so what we do is leveraging the power of AI is we can say, we're going to create audience segmentations for you. We're going to predict what they want, what your consumers want to see. And we're going to help you actually not only generate the content for that, but display it in real time to the right person in the right place. And so we're helping companies better connect with their customers with the data they already have. And then the goal is to then supplement that understanding with rich consumer data that is maybe outside of their platform, but that we've been given consent to collect, share, and utilize. And that way companies gain access to macro level data that helps them better understand what the customer wants.
Amazing. And then now you're talking about the use of AI, because the AI starts to get more visibility now with the generative AI, the language models start to get on a very large scale now because of the computer processing and things like that. And now is a very good time for you use this, all the data they have to amplify this. How you're using AI to amplify the results from the companies I'm working on.
Yeah, so I think everyone has seen the power of AI, especially with how accessible it is now through tools like ChatGPT, Claude, etc. And so I think the uses of AI are really unlimited on the broad scheme, but here's how we use it, or we want to use it at Mineme. The first is, how can you unlock and create categorizations of your customer automatically? How can you predict what customers want based on what we already know? And then how can you actually action on that? And so what I mean by that is we're using AI to segment audiences in a way that goes above and beyond what a manual worker is able to do. We're then able to help you create actual content, whether that's images, whether that's descriptions, whether that's product recommendations. We are building agents that can do that for you instead of having to spend hours of manual labor trying to come up with 50 different content ideas for 50 different audiences. And then we want to deploy that in real time. So we want to say, when you have someone who purchased an item and you know information about that person, how can you pick the right ad set, pick the right on-site creatives, pick the right description, and serve it to that person at the right time? And we're automating all of that and taking out all the manual labor of it by using AI. And that would not have been possible, a handful of years ago. It's really tremendous to see the progress that we've made.
You're using right now most of this data into e-commerce, right? But as we have cell phones, have computers and other devices as well. How you combine everything together?
Yeah, so I think that's the real value add, right? Is what we're doing is we're creating not only a personalized experience, but a unified experience. And what I mean by that is, for every individual that comes to an e-commerce site, whether it's on-site, whether it's on mobile, or whether you've received an email or an advertisement, right? What we want to do is leverage the information that we have about you and predictive analytics that we can come up with to make sure that when you're looking at the brand or looking at the website, it's a personalized experience for you. And that personalization extends to off-site touch points. So not just on the mobile app, not just on the website, but when you receive text communications or email communications, any digital touch point should follow that through line, because we can connect the dots and make sure that the experience is continuous for you and not fragmented in the way that it is today.
Interesting. For the way to acquire users or acquire this data, what is your strategy? What are you doing right now to get it? Because we need to get a lot of people. You told me that you're in beta tests for some devices now, but what is your strategy long term?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for us, so far we've been lucky that we've built a wait list of just hundreds of users at the moment, purely through organic word of mouth marketing. And I think for us, we are really excited about continuing to grow organically because, paid marketing and paid acquisition is as we've discussed, far more expensive, and the return on that ad spend is declining. So what we want to do is, first, we're targeting on the consumer side, students largely aged 18 to 35 for two main reasons. First, they are incredibly excited about passive income opportunities and discounts and rewards and all of that. And they're also incredibly savvy about data and wanting to be in control of that. So they're a real prime audience. But also, because they're students, they have high potential earnings in the future, which translates to high customer lifetime value for many brands. And so it's a really valuable segment for a lot of people. So we're partnering with student groups, with student adjacent groups like scholarship programs. For example, I myself benefited from scholarship programs, attending school. And so partnering with organizations like that have access to students, that want to offer students the opportunity to control their data and also, gain benefits and compensation for it. That's been our organic growth strategy so far. And as we continue to grow our wait list, we're super excited about trying creative partnership opportunities.
And for acquiring your customer for enterprises, what's the strategy there?
Yeah. So we're super lucky in that we've been able to talk to industry leaders in e-commerce, partially supplemented by my own professional network at Deliver. But we've been able to talk to C-level executives at places like P&G, at Athletic Brewing Company, at really top tier D2C brands who are excited to share with us what their process is today and what's working really well and what could work better. And it was sort of with these insights that we're building our platform. So we're lucky that these design partnerships and this design intel has helped us build a product that matters to companies. And now when the product is ready and when we are out of beta testing, I'm incredibly excited to hopefully convert some of those beta or design partners into users and expand our sales network from there.
Interesting. And how you manage, or how are you doing right now, this integration between Mineme and the enterprises? How is this process right now?
Yeah. So we're still building it, but what we want to do is essentially create an enterprise platform, right, for them, an enterprise portal, which they can do a couple of things. One is actually, directly integrate into our data feeds to be able to supplement their own first-party data. The second is to make sure that we can integrate into whatever their CRMs is, to be able to pull essentially a unified view, a 360 view of the customer that they have, and then be able to deploy what we call dynamic frames. And what that means is be able to drag and drop low-code bits onto their site, onto their mobile app, that allows us to serve the ad creatives that we generate in our Creative Studio in real time onto their sort of front end faces through these dynamic frames. So that is the vision of how we're hoping to build out in the process of what we're building and testing. So stay tuned.
Nice. What is the stage right now of the company? Because you're developing the both sides right now, and what is your step that you are in right now? So you wanna get more enterprise to test, or do you wanna increase your wait list for the beta testing? What is the stage right now, and what do you want?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we are at the stage where we are doing a little bit of both, but our first priority is really to build out a really robust consumer base to make sure that we're building a data set at scale and of value. And so we are in the process of talking to as many consumers as we can, growing our wait list, educating folks about the importance of data ownership on the consumer side. And then on the enterprise side is continuing to work with our design partners. We're always looking for marketers in the space to help us help them with their biggest problems, right? That's what it's all about, is saying we want to empower you to be able to better serve customers. So how can we learn from you, learn from what exists, learn from best practices to build a solution that can 10x the way that they operate and serve their customers?
Nice. This is the question of some investors that are watching this, and also for some founders. What is your investment stage now? Are you open for investment? You received some seed? What is the situation right now?
Yeah, great question. So we just raised a little bit of funding to make sure that we have, enough capital to push us through our next phase of building, which we're incredibly excited about. The way I like to think about investment is cash and capital is incredible, but really what matters the most is operational partnership and being able to work with venture capital firms that are excited and have a thesis in this space, but also can help us learn.
Yeah, because people that are working on this space can give you some advices and things that works.
Exactly. And really serve as a partner in this process and help make connections and help us, get to the next phase of just from good to great. And so that's really what we're excited about. And if there's a capital component to it, that's excellent. All to say, anyone who is excited in this space, definitely reach out to me at archana@mindmedata.com. We're always looking to meet and learn from new people.
What is your thoughts about AI 3, 5, 10 years from now?
Yeah. I think thinking about AI, it takes me back to when cloud, first sort of revolutionized the way we think about our online experience, right? It is not just a step change, it is a leap, a monumental leap in what we're able to do and what we can unlock with this new set of tools. And I think AI really is the new frontier of how we engage on the internet and how we engage with one another. I think the important thing to remember with AI is a human is only as good as their tools, and the AI is only as good as its inputs, right? And so it's just a self-feeding cycle where AI and humans better enable the other to get the job done. And so on the human side is how can we think about leveraging the power of AI in very specific use cases, right? How can we narrow down almost this incredibly vast power to have really targeted applications and use cases? And I think that is what we're still figuring out. And I think in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to have a really clear-cut set of use cases that help enhance our productivity at scales that I can't even imagine, right? But on the other hand, just what we need to make sure to do is to make sure the inputs that are building these models are the right inputs. So how do we train these models on ethically sourced data? I know people are still figuring it out. We hear every day in the news, people are doing it right, people are doing it wrong. So how can we be really thoughtful about what goes into these models? How are we sense checking for bias? How are we sense checking for ethically sourced data? How are we sense checking for the right level of decision making? Because fundamentally, an AI as a technology, it doesn't bring the universal processing power that a human might, to certain decision making. So how are we putting the right checks and balances in place? I think that's going to be the key question. And once we crack that, every job is going to be 10 times, if not more, efficient than they were before, because they can take out the burden and the routineness, and hand that off to AI to make sure that we're saved for the decision making that matters.
Continue this thoughts about you can enhance your productivity sometimes 10x or even more. What you're doing right now. Do you think some industries or some people can lose their jobs? Do you think this will be possible?
It's a good question. I think yes. I think there are certain roles and there are certain functions that AI is lower level decision making that AI can take off the plates. But while that does maybe change some of the existing industries, I view it as an opportunity to take folks who were spending tremendous amounts of brain power and time and manual effort doing those roles, opening them up to take the next level, to take that next step, right? So For example, if, I don't know, if data entry is able to be automated by AI, can you take the person that used to do data entry and empower them to do data analytics and insight extraction and application, right? Because how you take an output from a machine and translate it to the real world is, I think, where human creativity, human compassion, human empathy comes into the mix. And hopefully what we can do is when we alleviate the burden of some of the more mundane tasks, we open up people to do some of the more creative and exciting aspects of the job.
You mentioned about data privacy.
Yes.
So those models, like we've discussed about multiple times this conversation, sometimes we know what's entered, but also sometimes we don't know how much is sharing. And thinking about the future, how do you think people can protect? Try to don't be biased, but how do you think can protect the data overall?
Yeah, I think we need to move to a universe and a data marketplace where user participation isn't the exception, but it's the norm. And so if we're able to move into the world that Mineme is looking to create, right, where consumers have full transparency and control and visibility over data sharing, then they are adequately compensated for when their information is used to train models. And only when we normalize that level of ownership, which we never have before, can we hold folks accountable and follow, the track of who owns what to make sure they're compensated appropriately.
Interesting. For the people that want to get more involved to AI, maybe want to learn more, or people that are already on data science, data analysts
Yes.
that want to take the next steps, so what do you recommend for those people?
Absolutely. I think, and this is going to sound mundane, but to be clear, I don't code. I'm not deeply technical, but I have always been an AI enthusiast and AI, fan, truly. And I just read. And so every article that comes out about AI, read the news. It's always in the news. Test your favorite products. If you want to do a job that, is driving you crazy at work, do a quick Google search or do a quick ChatGPT search to see how AI can help you do that thing. And by implementing it and inserting it into your life and getting smart on how it can help you, you'll automatically be introduced to how it can help the world.
Thank you for coming here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast.
Amazing. And see you guys in the next episode. Thank you.